Welcome to Living Ardently. I'm your host, Adrian Giraldi, and today we're here with another guest for our next COVID convo or COVID collab, and we'll introduce him in just a second. All right, so today's guest is another YouTuber and a podcaster. He's the director of evangelization over in Texas, and he's a father of 5. You can follow him at Edmund Mitchell on Instagram. Today's guest is Edmund Mitchell.
Hey, it's great to be here.
Hey, it's always a cool thing to record with other podcasters because, you know, like,
oh, for sure,
when you record with those who haven't been on the podcast before, it's like you got to debrief them and all this stuff and tell them, hey, look, it's all cool, no worries. And then, but when you're recording,
I think after all of this, I'm gonna start a career as a professional podcast guest, because I think I make a really good guest. I might even make a better guest than a host.
Right.
So if anyone's listening out there, if you wanna start paying me, or if you wanna just have me on your show, it doesn't matter what show, doesn't matter what topic, doesn't matter what time of day or night. It doesn't matter the length of the podcast, honestly, either. I'm a really good podcast guest. I'm better than Taylor Schroll at being a podcast guest. That's for sure.
He said some quite opposite things yesterday. Last time we recorded.
Well, he's a liar.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's just a different energy that comes on when you're recording with somebody who's familiar with podcasting. So it's a great to have you on here.
Thanks, man.
Of course. So we're gonna play a game real quick before we start. I love doing these things.
I'm ready.
It's even more fun with somebody who enjoys having fun.
Yeah, what a youth minister you are.
Right. Icebreakers, and then we get into it.
Yeah, really open my heart up to receive this message.
That's awesome. I'm going to have to apologize in advance if the connection of this podcast is a little weird, but hopefully I'm able to fix that in post. So,
yeah, we'll work it out.
We'll work on it. So the game is similar to, is the same, almost exactly the same thing, because Taylor asked from last week for you to do the exact same challenge, which is the musical impersonation.
All right, game. I'll probably do better.
Right.
Oh, I don't know if I'll do better at that.
So I'm going to give you a person and a song, or a character, a singer or a character and a song.
All right.
And you're going to have to sing that song in that character or singer's voice. Okay.
I already know I'm going to be bad at this. Okay. All right. I'm bad at like vocal impressions.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's do it. All right. I'm here for that, though.
All right, this one.
I just know I'm already going to be bad at this. All right, here we go.
I'll start with this one. This one's really good. Darth Vader singing A Whole New World.
Who?
Darth Vader singing A Whole New World.
Who? Darth Vader singing A Whole New World. Oh, my gosh. Okay. Wait, here. Okay. And he has kind of like a deep okay, this is my best. I'm really bad at voices, but here we go. I need something in my mouth. I can't. I can show you the world. Shining, shimmering splendor. Tell me, princess, now when did you last let your heart run wild? A whole new world. I'm your father. That's all I got.
That was fantastic. That's
all I got.
I know. I feel like you gave it more than Taylor did.
I did. I went hard. I go hard. I podcast hard.
All right, how about this? Johnny Cash, Old Town Road.
Oh, gosh. Man, I don't know Johnny Cash well enough or the Old Town Road. I mean, I can hear one of his songs in my head. Shoot. Well, it's a. I'm so bad. Well, it's a. Hi, Folsom Prison. Well, took my horse to the old town. I don't know. I got nothing for that one. Old Town Road. I don't know. I got nothing, man. That one I failed on that one. I failed.
That one I had Taylor do that in a John Legend voice, and he also failed at that one.
Oh, yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's deep cuts. Okay.
How about...
All right, what's next? Is there another one?
I got a couple more. Aerosmith singing Twinkle Twinkle.
Aerosmith singing Twinkle Twinkle. Oh, gosh. Holy cow. Aerosmith singing Twinkle Twinkle. 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 Little star. Sing with me. Sing for the years. What's the rest of the lyrics to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? Oh, how I wonder what you are. I don't know. That's all I got.
The Twinkle Twinkle part was amazing. That was like 10 times better.
Okay. All right.
Man. All right, the last one. Elmo doing Don't Stop Believing.
Elmo doing what does Elmo sound? Hello. How does Elmo sound? My name is Elmo. Tickle me elbow. Doing what song?
Don't Stop
Tickle
Believing.
Tickle me. What?
Don't Stop Believing.
I believe. Don't Stop Believing. Oh. See her in a smoky room. Smell of wine. Cheap perfume. Oh.
You sound more like
now in any walk. The dice. I don't know what Elmo sounds like.
Yeah, it sounds more like
strangers tickle me.
From
the guy from what?
Family Guy.
Yeah. Man, I'm so bad. All my friends know I'm so bad at voice impressions. So bad. Very, very bad.
That's amazing. That was great, though. It makes for good entertainment, right?
Oh, well, thank you for that. I think you caught some of my chest there when I did the Darth Vader, but I'm okay with that.
That was fantastic. So I love doing these kind of games because it just it makes it everything loose, especially for those who are not podcasters. But it kind of breaks them down a little bit and kind of gets them to relax. And but it's also cool to do it with the podcasters because they just like you. Just let it go.
That was supposed to be relaxing.
Man, I should have done that one.
That was not relaxing. That was not relaxing at all.
I mean, I'm
what you're
feeling
talking
loose,
about.
and this is.
Oh wow, is that whiskey?
No.
Oh, nice.
It's coffee. It's coffee. It's cold brew.
Perfect.
I know. I said I'm feeling loose right now, and then showed the glass, so. It was very deceiving.
Yeah, you were like, here we go, feeling a little sauced right now.
It's like 1:00 in the afternoon.
Here we go. Corona. # Corona drinking.
Corona Chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a man of alliteration, if you don't know that.
Like a good youth minister.
Oh, yeah. I like to start off by asking a little bit about your little faith background. Where like were you raised Catholic and all that stuff? A little bit. Get the listeners a little bit about you, if they don't know you already.
Yeah. So my story is grew up Catholic. My parents were really involved in, like, my dad taught RCIA and my parents were pretty involved. And then in high school, started getting really interested in apologetics and started, just studying apologetics a little bit and, debating my Protestant friends about the Catholic Church and then started dating a Protestant. So then also, like, trying to figure out my faith even more. And then I think it was Jeff Cavins came to our parish. And for the first time in my life, it was either Jeff Cavins or Scott Hahn. And like for the first time in my life, I was just really moved by this guy who was very, very smart, but I just could tell that he had a relationship with the Lord that I didn't have. Then my dad handed me a book, I think Rome Sweet Home, to give to my girlfriend at the time.
Right.
And, you know, kind of like, yeah, give this to your Protestant girlfriend, you know, this will fix her. And which wasn't a great idea. But so I'm walking out into the parking lot to get in my car and I start reading the book, and I read like 3/4 of the book just sitting in my car in the parking lot of our church because I was so captivated by this book. Wow. Went to college at Georgia Tech to be a biomedical engineer because I wanted to be really rich and really smart. And after a while, one of my best friends was like, dude, you're using all your textbook money to buy Catholic books and not like your calculus and physics books. And I started discerning, you know, was really involved at the Catholic Center there. And I started discerning, transitioning to Franciscan University. I was super scared about the idea, but I felt this unrest, and I really wanted to give more of my life than just volunteer time to evangelization, to this work of ministry and evangelization. I knew I wasn't called to be a priest. So obviously very confused, right? I'm not really sure, you know, what the career path is for this. Right. So I look in the back of a Scott Hahn book, and it says, that he teaches at Franciscan University. So I call Franciscan University, call the administration, or the admin counselor or whatever, and admissions counselor. And I said, I think I want to be Scott Hahn. And the guy laughed. And I said, yeah, like I'm interested in transferring there to become Scott Hahn. And he said, that's not really a career path, man. And I said, okay, well, tell me more. And so he said, you know, tell me more about what you're interested in. And I was describing it to him, and he said, well, I know you're really interested in theology, but, you know, theology is the science of the study of God. But we have this major called catechetics, and catechesis is how to participate in the handing on of divine revelation to other people. It's catechesis is learning how to, how to pass the faith on, how to, you know, as the church documents say, how to put people in intimacy and communion with Jesus Christ, you know, and then that field of study lends itself to, you know, religious school teachers, but also youth ministers, directors of evangelization, you know, coordinators of children's catechesis, those types of things. Right. So I was like, man, that sounds amazing. And it was one of the only universities I could find where catechesis was not like a minor or a focus. It was a major. You could major in catechetics. Yeah. And so, so I went there, studied evangelization, we studied a lot of the church documents on evangelization and catechesis and that relationship, and also double majored. So I majored in theology and catechetics with a minor in, or a focus, I guess, in youth ministry, and then went into youth ministry. Oh, and then you asked about my relationship with God. So a lot of that hasn't been necessarily my relationship with God, but, at Franciscan, you know, I had this big stirring of trying to get closer to the Lord, and a lot of it was very intellectual until I went to Franciscan and I started meeting people, because I thought, okay, I'm at Franciscan, like this is where all the smart kids are. This is where all like the kids that read the books I read are, you know, like this is going to be great. And I was shocked because I met people who talked about Jesus as if he was in their closet in their dorm room. Like they talked about Jesus as if they talked to him every day, and they didn't maybe know as much theology, or they hadn't read as many, you know, like not everyone was that way, but I met people that really knew Jesus. And I was like, man, I want that. Like I really, really want that. And so that's where my relationship with the Lord just got much more personal and direct, and really moved, you know, with the cliche, it really moved from the head to the heart for me. So I met my wife there, and went into youth ministry in Toledo, Ohio, for 3 years there. And then moved to, when we found out we were pregnant with our third child, I think, had an opportunity to move closer to my wife's parents. And so, we moved here to Fort Worth, Grapevine, Texas, in Fort Worth. And I've always just had a really, I don't know, at some point along the way, I feel like Jesus just kind of grabbed me around the neck and was like, you need to invest in a parish. And I've been praying for a long time to just that the Lord would allow me to stay at one parish for a long period of time and just help change the culture, shift the culture towards evangelization. So that's really been, passion of my, little v vocation, I guess, for professional parish ministry. So I moved up, not up, but like now I'm over the Department of Evangelization and really helping craft the vision and mission for the whole department.
Right.
And I work primarily in adult ministry now, and then have 2 youth ministers under me, and a K-6 coordinator, and then we have a RCIA coordinator. So that's kind of our like team in our department. And so it's just trying to move the needle on parish-wide evangelization.
That's awesome.
So yes, that's a little bit about my background leading up to now. Yeah.
With what you're doing now, so it's parish-wide, like, evangelization. Like, and it's in Texas. I feel like the congregation's a lot larger than normal, like, parish sizes are. So do you find it a little bit difficult, or do you find, like, because you're focusing on this, you're able to connect with more of the families in the parish?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different beast here. Like in Toledo, I think our youth ministry, our confirmation classes were maybe only 30 to 60 maybe. And then here, our confirmation classes are like 100, 120. Wow. So yeah, it's definitely a very different animal. And we're not even one of the largest. I mean, we're a fairly large parish, but there are others that have like 2 100 teen class, like confirmation masses, Right. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge. I mean, you get used to it. I mean, and it definitely forces you out of the mindset of like, I am the youth minister, and instead, like, I need to direct youth ministers and youth ministry. Right. And the same for evangelization. It's like, there's no way I can reach every single family in our parish. Right. And we could host large events and get some of them, but it's really important to mentor mentors, or to teach teachers to teach, like to disciple people into discipling others. It's really, really important. So we kind of focus a lot on that. That's been a huge shift in the way we approach our jobs, is, borrowing from Andy Stanley's, like, only do what only you can do. And when you start asking yourself, what is it that only I can do? Because there's a lot that other people could do and would love to be involved with, and might even do it better. So what is it as a parish worker, as a full-time, parish minister, what is it that only I can do? And then let's delegate the rest and build up teams to really take over those things. So that's kind of a different challenge, and definitely much more important at a larger parish.
Right. I think it's really cool. I love listening and talking to people about that kind of stuff, because, getting different insights from different youth ministers. I love connecting with them, or people who have been in ministry. I just kind of find a different, a way of going about ministry is always a refreshing, like, way for us to, where are we not lacking, but maybe where we could improve, at our parish. And, I've been at my parish for almost 3 years now. And we just got a new new DRE, or what we call them here, PCLs, Parish Catechetical Leaders. And John is amazing. He's like, he's ready, like, kind of helping us, like, hey, look, this is our vision, isn't it? So, like, why are we stuck in things that we already know to do? And kind of like challenge us as a staff to kind of like, hey, let's think outside the box and challenge ourselves to be bold, to do something new. And so it's been really refreshing to kind of, see an outsider's point of view. Because just like that in ministry, you can go into like, oh, the flow of things, and not that it's a bad thing, but you can get stuck in that flow of things and not dare to be, creative.
Yeah, getting stuck with complacency is something we all struggle with in life, but also, in church ministry, because it can be really difficult to know if you're making progress. It can be really difficult to know if what you're doing is making a difference. It can be easy to just continue doing things that are easy and just chalk it up to, well, we're just being faithful. And then you can do the opposite, where you're just constantly chasing new things and constantly reinventing that nothing really lasts. So it's a struggle, and it's a struggle everyone goes through. And it's really, that's why the importance of just discernment and prayer, following the Holy Spirit and like following grace, is really, really important.
Yeah, definitely. And, I've been listening to the beginnings of your Catholic Youth Ministers podcast, because I feel like we need outsiders. Like I said, we need to listen to outsider point of view. But small side note, was there an actual like a year gap between the first episode and the second?
Oh man, oh yes, there was a year gap. There was a teaser. We recorded, and then is that what you're referring to? There was like a teaser, like, hey, this is coming soon, and then there was a Catholic publishing company that wanted to, that was going to publish and produce the podcast. So we paused for a little bit because we were going through all the like contracts and figuring out the show and what would the show consist of and stuff like that. And then it just dragged on way too long. And after a year, we just decided like, we want to release this. Like, I don't want to wait any longer. And so we went our separate ways, and then I just started producing it myself.
Nice. Yeah, because I ran into it when you started re-promoting it. And then I went to go listen to the first episode, and it was in July of last year. And I was like, oh, wow. And then I was like, wait, was there just like episodes that are missing?
There's been a big gap.
Or was there like a misprint on the date?
No, it's been crazy. No, it's been crazy. And then we recorded like 3 episodes a week for like 2 months or something. So we had like a ton of episodes. Oh, wow. And then, so we had a ton of episodes we recorded ahead of time. And then I went through this whole transition where I was trying to get into this studio and trying to see if like that was something, a next step I should take. And so we went this long period of time where all these episodes are coming out, but Nick and I weren't recording any. So, and as I'm getting into the studio and renovating the whole place and repainting everything. And so, it's been a while since we've actually recorded one, and we need to like kind of relaunch all of these new episodes in this new space here.
Nice. That's awesome. That's really cool. And so outside of that one, you're more known for the show. So how did that start? Was that just an exuberance of your a desire of yours, or something that you wanted to start as like a ministry? And how long ago? Just kind of stuff like that.
So, I've listened to podcasts, man, for like years and years and years. I think way back, when I was in college, I had started kind of listening to some different podcasts back in like 2011 and then 12 maybe, and then came across Radiolab probably in 2012 or 13, and just really fell in love with, and then, went through all these different phases of different types of podcasts and stuff. And I've always dabbled with like blogging and making videos and doing creative stuff. And for some reason, at some point, and I've tried to start, so many different podcasts, and really what stopped a podcast from continuing, what stopped me from continuing to do it, was with a lot of the old podcasts that I started. I tried really hard to pick a niche or pick a type of like, okay, this is going to be about this. And it wasn't until I really found Gary Vee and then Joe Rogan that I was like, man, you know what? I just need a place to be free of any type of creative boundaries. And just, if I want to talk to someone interesting, I'm going to talk to them. Right. And if it happens to be a Catholic musician, then whatever. If it happens to be someone else, then fine. If it's going to be an episode where it's just me, just being an idiot, then okay. And I just knew my only goal was just to never stop doing it. So my only goal was just, I know I want to do this for a long time, and I know I want to keep doing it. So I just started it up, and I was like, I'm going to do this for years. I want a really vague name so that I'm not tempted to like try to over market it or niche it or something. And so I was just like, all right, it's just the show. Like, it's the show. I have no idea what it's going to be. It's the show with Edmund. And, it's kind of a dumb name and I kind of regret it, but at the same time, it's like, whatever, like, 5 years from now, I'll just be glad if I keep doing it, and it gives me an opportunity to talk with people, be creative, and yeah, so that's kind of like the origin of that.
I love that. I think the show was so simple. I mean, it's like, I love when, I love your the most semi-Catholic podcasts out there. I love that too, because it's just like,
yeah,
I'm a sucker for Catholic things that are not overly Catholic by title, like,
yeah,
it just sneakily
totally.
Mine is Living Ardently. It's not like in your face I'm Catholic. Unless you look at the logo, you'll probably there's a corpus on there. There probably is Christian at least. But to live an ardent life doesn't really require you to be a Catholic if you wanted to live virtuously, right? So like, I just wanted to sneak in there and then like, hey, look, by the way, this is the good stuff.
Yeah, if I wasn't working at a parish, I would need like an outlet to catechize and to be involved in ministry and stuff like that. But at my parish, like everything is very explicitly Catholic.
Right.
And so there's also this other thing where like if Joe Rogan was a passionate, devout Catholic, like that would be awesome. Right. And, I still like listening to him regardless of that, right. But there are certain people like, I wish as I was growing up more and more that I had Catholics who were engaging in the world and not just engaging in like this echo chamber, that sometimes we can get in. And so I just wanted to explore the world and have someone just kind of find out that I'm Catholic. I mean, it's kind of happening. Like I have some Protestants that start listening to it and are just like, starting to get curious with the Catholic Church, but they can still listen to it and just still feel like the cool thing about podcasts is you feel like you're friends. You feel like you're overhearing friends talking and you're kind of involved. And so, I've had all sorts of weird people on. I had a Jedi Knight on, an actual Jedi Knight. I had like journalists and a evolutionary psychologist. And so it's really just an excuse to get guests on the show that otherwise wouldn't care about me. Right.
I was funny. I was like, somebody was asking me what my top podcasts I'd listen to currently. And I was like, well, there's 3 of them. One of them is like a couple of YouTubers, like just chatting. And then, and they're definitely not like wholesome content always, Then I was like, oh, Edmund Mitchell. Yeah. The show, right? And then I would say that, Taylor Schroll and which clerically speaking. And I just give these pieces like, oh, what are these things about? And I would have like a pretty good like thing for every other show. And then there's yours. And I was like, well, there's Edmund's show there's really no structure. It can be an hour-long podcast. It can be 2 hours.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. Yeah. Yeah. So, and I like that. I mean, that's just me. Yeah. I don't know. I like that. And it's an outlet in my life where I cannot, where I'm kind of, I free myself to not care as much. There are other outlets, right? The Catholic Youth Ministry Podcast, very intentional. We're writing it. It's for a purpose, it's for a specific audience. And so it's nice to have a place to just kind of, one time I just remixed a Michael Voris, like church militant, like YouTube clip with like a little pocket recorder, like a little synth thing. And like, and it was just like, this is what we're doing this week. I'm doing this, it's nice. I don't know. I really enjoy that.
That's cool. I haven't seen that. I gotta go check that out. Oh man, that's probably hilarious. Yeah. I did watch. One of my favorite things you did once was the breaking down of Chris Stefanik's talk. Because that talk is the talk that like converted me.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
I was like, this is awesome. He's right. You broke it down to like all these things. Yeah. Like, oh yeah, this is how he really got to my heart.
Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that kind of stuff is like really fun to do. And then just having my friends come over and just being idiots about like current events and stuff like that. And like this, like just seeing where the conversation goes. Right. And it's fun. It's really fun to do.
Yeah, I love it. It's like I said, it has similar structure, like loose structure as some of the other podcasts, like the YouTubers podcast that I listen to. like those two, like the few of them that go on that, it's like it's just loose. It's like whatever like they want to talk about, they talk about it. There's no like complete structure to everything. And you know, I guess me being a spontaneous person enjoys that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
me too.
So how is it like? How many years have you been doing it actually?
Shoot, man. Dang, I don't know. I mean, like it kind of had a shaky start right around when like that Anchor app came out, and I was on there for a little bit, and then it had a relaunch probably in like 2018. And so I had like a real good run of remote interviews. And then I think around December of 2018, I decided to try to just do in-person interviews. And so I started getting into like camera gear and, you know, what could I offer for people? Because I can't really pay for them. So I just started inviting friends I had around the area to come over for like in-person interviews. And I didn't think that would last long at all, but we went almost like a whole year just doing in-person interviews. And so I mean, so it's kind of been on and off a little bit here and there, but it's been consistent, you know, at least since like, I think like November, December of 2018 or 19 or 18, and then early 2019. So about I don't know, it feels like 2 years, but, yeah.
Right. Yeah, how I got I forgot. I remember how I got introduced to you and your podcast was because my friend, who I guess was a listener, you did something on Instagram where you had people like do something and you reposted it on your story. And my friend had done that, like you had reposted her story, and she got really excited and like put it back on her story. And I was like, who is this guy? Why is she like freaking out? So I like looked at your account and your profile. I was like, oh wow, like this guy has a Catholic podcast. And so I was like, oh, let me go listen to it. And so I think that's how I remember. I just don't remember what exactly you were doing on Instagram that made her go crazy.
Oh man, but I had so many dumb things. I do so many dumb things.
The question is then, right? So then my last question before we go on break is, how does this ministry, like this podcast, kind of like relate or differ from your in-person ministry, and how you do for your job?
Yeah, I mean, our in-person ministry is really trying to change a culture, like a parish culture, towards evangelization and the primacy of evangelization. And it's a lot more like, you know, in-person events and training. And, you know, there is some overlap, like creating video resources or, you know, there's some graphic design stuff, which I like doing and stuff like that. There's some like branding and marketing aspects to it, but it's not like the primary part of it. So there's a lot more like, you know, team dynamics and stuff like that. But, yeah. And then I would say that they kind of complement each other. I think, you know, at the parish ministry, there's a lot of teaching and upfront stuff and in-person, you know, dynamics that really help in presenting and communicating in a podcast or on a video or on a YouTube channel. And then on the other side, like I think learning all the marketing side and client work and marketing and business coaching and those types of things. I mean, it just helps with the kind of marketing side of evangelization. So they kind of bleed into each other. And then the other thing is like, you know, just kind of living your life and then having something interesting to say or think about or to say during, when you are on the other side, like creating YouTube videos or podcasting. So I think they kind of, they balance off of each other pretty well. And with my personality type, like I get really obsessive in short-term bursts. And so it's nice to kind of have a little project here, in my spare time that I really, you know, pour myself into, and then, you know, go and then just like feel totally refreshed to get back to work on Monday, you know, and get back into the church. And so I don't know. It's for me, it's a good balance. I know for not for everyone. I mean, for a lot of people, it's like they need more maybe, you know, downtime and relaxed time. but I just love it.
Right.
I just love cramming my time with all these different activities, right?
Right. Yeah, I love it. I was just talking to my girlfriend yesterday, and she was like, like this podcast is coming like a second part, like a second job for you. I was like, if it was taxing, I would say it was a second job, but this is a passion project that I just love so much that, like I don't see it as draining at all. There's some points where like editing can get sometimes tiring, but I love connecting with people and chatting with them. And now that we have new ways of doing that with others, and like I lined up a few great people to interview for the month of May, and it's just like really exciting. It like brings me a lot of a joy, and makes me, like you said, refreshed for when I have to go back to work. And I look forward to like, oh, I got this at the end of the week, and I'm recording with this person and that person, and it's gonna be really fun. So like,
for sure,
it's definitely very good for me mentally, physically too.
Yeah, definitely.
So we have more. We have more with Edmund Mitchell in just a little bit, but before that, let's take a break right here. So for those of you listening on YouTube right now, you're getting a different ad than you would if you're listening on the audio format of the podcast, and that's because we are doing different ads here. on the audio form, we promote Anchor so we can get some, ad revenue from there. And right now, we are using this slot on YouTube for anything else. We'll also include these slots into the audio format, like as part of the ads as well. It just then becomes back to back sometimes. So if you want to use this ad slot for anything for your company, or we can talk, I'll reach out and this could be a slot for you. Right now, if you want to support the podcast, please go to Anchor and click on the link in the description below and support us financially by donating $1 a month, $2 a month, whatever you can. Anything and everything is welcome and very, very appreciated. So if you feel so generously to do so, and if you enjoy the podcast, that'd be cool. Eventually we will start a Patreon, but for now, Anchor is the way that we are setting up our donations. God bless you, and thank you for considering. Let's get back to the episode. All right, we're back with Edmund Mitchell from the show, as well as the Catholic Youth Ministry podcast. Edmund, next question here is, how does this ministry, this podcast, how does it help your relationship with God?
Oh man, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I definitely don't think about it like a ministry, but I think it's definitely helped me figure out, there's this idea of finding your voice in like writing and, even performing or video, that kind of thing. Like when you get started on YouTube, right, like finding, like, what's your voice? Like, how do you speak on camera? And it's a delicate balance. I mean, I think some of that, you go through a little bit of that even when you start as a catechist, even when you start, or as a speaker, when you get up in front of people, it's like finding how to express yourself in a way that's clear and communicates authentically who you are. It's, the other day I was talking with someone, and I was talking with, I think Glass Canvas, and we kind of came up with this idea of you have to practice being yourself, and you have to practice being yourself, and you kind of become more of yourself as you learn how to do that, as you learn how to not put up a mask and like there's a way where you could use vulnerability and authenticity as a shield a little bit and kind of keep someone at a distance. Yeah. Or you could be you could be like just unprofessional and slapstick the whole time. So I think the podcast has really helped me, as I'm reacting to maybe just kind of myself getting oversaturated by super Catholic content, and then going in the opposite direction, like, just tons of stand-up comedians and all this other stuff. And then really struggling to figure out, okay, but but what does make me different? Because there is a balance to that. Because if I just shed everything, like then I'm no longer Catholic. Like, so what is different about me? Like, what is, if I am just being myself, like, do I like that? Do I like, it's like looking at yourself in the mirror. Am I essential? Right. Like, so I think the podcast has definitely helped me navigate that balance in my own life of where I feel comfortable and where I feel called to just be myself. And I think definitely that's helped me in my relationship with the Lord. It's helped me be a little more honest and helped me confront some of the crutches that I have, like realizing that just being slapstick and funny can sometimes be a crutch I'm using because I'm nervous or uncomfortable or I don't have something substantial to say. And so that was tough as well, is going, oh man, maybe I need to work a little harder and write a little more and really craft it. And it's not as easy as it looks, and so I think in a lot of those ways, it's helped me kind of confront myself a little more.
Right. That's really great. I remember listening to, I guess you had mentioned it recently on the podcast where you had said that, we can mask ourselves with vulnerability and stuff like that, because in my ministry, vulnerability is like how we love, right? And so like we need to get to that point because, with teens, they put doors in front of them so they never have to be vulnerable, right? But I love my ministry is based around the writing, C.S. Lewis's Four Loves, where he said, to love it all is to be vulnerable. And if you read the entire quote, basically he's saying like, if you don't want a heart to break, lock it up in a casket, like wrap it around your selfishness. And like, and in that, coffin of your selfishness, it won't break. It will like be cold. And, so like that is, so it was to me, like vulnerability is like our biggest, like we need to reach like the highest goal. But then when you had mentioned that, I was like, oh, that's true. Like maybe there's times where, we use that as a mask, or we use it to like, oh, I don't want to show you if I'm being so real, maybe you won't see what I'm trying to hide. Yeah.
Or just using vulnerability to steer a conversation away from an area of your life that you don't want to be vulnerable about. So you kind of like opening up in a way that, it is very authentically vulnerable, but maybe you start, we're like skiing down this hill together as friends, and, you're trying to care for me and ask how I'm doing. And instead of giving you exactly where I need to be open and vulnerable, I'm kind of like, I'm kind of veering off a little bit and kind of leading you in a different direction. So I've noticed that I do that a little bit. I've noticed that, in listening back to podcasts or just in the moment, just afterwards realizing like, it's probably not always the best thing to be. And then also there's boundaries, like you should have really clear boundaries. And I've definitely overstepped the lines of being too open and then realizing afterwards, like, oh, okay, that hurt someone, or that may hurt someone. So those types of things too, like it's all learning. It's all just learning how to be 30, how to be in your 30s. Yeah. It's all just like, Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. There's a Brene Brown. They said, she said something along the lines like, vulnerability without boundaries. I forget what she said about it, but it was like is not vulnerability.
Yeah.
There's a healthy a line there of boundaries, like like last Q&A, which is in the Q&A I did last month. I asked the question. The question was asked, what is God trying to teach you? Heal you in during this time of quarantine. And I was like, well, yeah, there's a big wound that was revealed recently that I didn't know I had, but right now is not the time to share it.
Yeah.
Because I'm still healing from it and I still need to figure that out.
Yeah. That's very wise that you could pick up on that. Yeah.
Right.
Especially for me being such an external processor, it's really tempting to just go, let me process this out loud right now, so. Right. It can be hard.
Same. I remember my spiritual director had asked me a similar question, and I just sat there and I was like, sheesh, where do I start? You know, like, how do I start that? I don't know. And then how do I even start processing it? But it was something very fruitful, and that it kind of like dug at my heart a little bit, and it got dug out even more when I finished this 30-day retreat with the Rise Men's Conference with Chris Stefanik. There was like one of the days there was a challenge, and one of those days I was just like, I sat in my car crying, like, and I was like, you know what, this is something that I need to kind of process more, and I didn't tell anyone besides my spiritual director, and you know, so there's a lot of, you know, I like to externally process. I like to think. That's why I like going to my spiritual director and talking and chatting with him, because, you know, this is something that, you know, I can't take lightly, right? So, but yeah, it's so good that you guys, I love that when you guys brought that up, and it was really cool to hear that. So, like, going back to the podcast then, for like, how do you come up with your podcast topics, or who you want to invite? It's just somebody like you decide. I know you said it's pretty free, and you creative boundaries are like loose, but like, you're like, oh, this is just something that interests you in the day, or how does it come up?
Well, at first it was just anyone that was willing to come on the show. I mean, at first it was just literally anyone that was willing to come to my house. Anyone that was willing to like fly or drive to my house. And, you know, so I went through a lot of my friends. I went through a lot of people I knew who were interesting, you know, musicians and speakers and authors and stuff like that. And then, you know, it's just like a lot of being curious about the world and trying to explore things. You know, I started, you know, reading books where people are mentioned, and then trying to see if I could reach out to them. You know, I had on one of my favorite guests, but I don't know that I executed the podcast super well because I was very nervous, was Julia Dween, who wrote a book on, it's called In the House of the Snake, or In the House of the Serpent Handler, about like snake handling Christians, these small like Pentecostal snake handling Christians in the Appalachian Mountains. And she like did this whole great, you know, this great book about how social media was really changing things. And this, so anyway, so, you know, it's just like being curious and about the world, and, you know, reading footnotes and stuff, and following your way into something where, you know, you're just fascinated by it. And then you reach out to people and go, hey, I want to ask you some questions about this. So there's some of that. And then also some of, honestly, just if someone says, hey, I'm going to be in town, then it's just fun to get them on the show and invite over. Johnny, Allie, or Nick are pretty recurring co-hosts. And so I'll just text them like, hey, is anyone free? And then I've also been really influenced by like the NPR Tiny Desk concert idea. And so we do some kind of events where we might have someone come over, and like we had Claire McAllen, who's a spoken word poet. And, you know, it was like, hey, if you come over, we'll invite some people over my house, and, you know, you can perform some of your poetry. That was another cool thing about a lot of the shows, was if someone was coming in from out of town or something, we would invite a lot of people over my house just to kind of be in the audience. And that was really cool. Like the time before and after the podcast, honestly, were just really, just really rewarding. Just loving on this person, having community with 8 to 10 people. Really just, it's all about that guest and taking photos and maybe doing a little performance. We had Amanda Vernon came one time, and we did a house concert. Yeah. We had this guy, Swall Pope, come, that I need to produce the episode in the show for that, but he came to the studio. It was our first like studio event, where he came and did a whole show here. And that was cool. It was alien and cowboy themed, and we decked out the whole studio with like cowboys and aliens, and
that's awesome,
and weird lights and stuff. And so, yeah. And, you know, I'm always trying to look for people that are right in that Venn diagram of like this spirit, science, beauty, kind of like that whole mix right there. And yeah, if I find somebody, especially someone that's like a little weird, a little out there, a little like on the fringe, then it's just shooting people DMs and hoping that they're not getting asked to be on 100 other podcasts, you know?
Right. Oh yeah, that's how how it happened between you and I just like, hey, like I'm already talking to Taylor. Why don't I just shoot a shot with Edmund too? And
Yeah, for sure. It's smart right now.
Yeah, I was just like, my mentor was just like, you can ask. The worst they can say is no or not respond.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, well, here goes nothing. So.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I think right now more than ever, like Instagram DMs are just really effective. Just, people have nothing to do and just start building relationships and asking people,
Right. And I'm trying, like I said, I'm only a year in, almost less than a year into the podcasting world. So like, but I had a t-shirt company, a Catholic t-shirt company, which I made friends through Catholic Instagram around then, who then transferred into my my audience as when I started podcasting. So that was like kind of a nice kickstart.
Yeah, that's amazing.
To the podcast. So it was nice. I think the Catholic Instagram like community is a lot more compelling and fun than the Catholic Twitter community.
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh, I have to limit my Catholic. I have to limit my Twitter intake because I just get I get so it's that's a astute point. I mean, it is interesting though because I think we are tempted to blame some of these circles, but then again, I probably haven't done a good enough job curating my Twitter feed or my Facebook feed in the same way.
Right.
There was a really, really good, I think it was a TED Talk about, basically about algorithm hygiene and about how, we use a lot of these apps for years and we don't realize that everything we're searching, everything we're watching and everyone we're following is really curating our feed and what we see. And we can sometimes extrapolate out and, we can sometimes extrapolate out into, well, this must be how the world is, or this must be how the Catholic world is, or this must be. I remember there was a guy who was, I think, an atheist, and I had lunch with him because he decided to come into the Catholic Church.
Nice.
But his only kind of real exposure to the Catholic Church was reading some Thomas Merton, reading some Bishop Barron, and then Catholic Twitter. And he was very confused by Catholic Twitter. He just was like, so I'm not really sure what I feel about the Novus Ordo, and I'm not really sure, like, I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know what we think about Pope Francis and all this stuff. And I was like, dude, like, that is not, I'm so sorry that that's your perception of the church, man. Like, you don't have, like, a lot of times a lot of those things, like, man, you don't have to have an opinion about that. Like, that's not what the church is about. Like, you don't have to become Catholic. You don't have to like answer a question, female altar servers, yes or no, in order to become Catholic. Like, it's just not part of the deposit of faith. It isn't what saves us. It's still important, but, and that's where like my love for the catechism and things like that really came about, was trying to navigate that in my 20s, trying to navigate, what do I believe? What do I think? And realizing that I was really depending on a lot of talking heads to tell me opinions, and I wasn't differentiating between opinion and the deposit of faith, like divine revelation. And the catechism, more or less, is kind of one of the best places you can do that. This is the universal teaching of the church. This is what Catholics believe. And if it's not in here, maybe it isn't that important for me to get worked up about the Vatican Bank, right? Like, maybe I don't need to have an opinion about that. I can't even vote. I can't even vote. Like, what am I supposed to do? Go to my local bishop and complain? Like, I mean, it's not like there's a local, it's not like, I'm going to vote in my local election on some of these changes.
Right.
Oh my gosh, freaked me out. My Alexa app, I'm alone in my studio, but 2 rooms over, the Alexa app started just talking. It freaked me out. Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, mine is right here, and sometimes I have these headphones in, and I can't. Just suddenly it goes off, and like, what's going on?
Yeah.
At night, it's terrifying. I have this one and a Google outside,
and
sometimes I get confused as who I'm talking to. So yeah, I think it's like, you make a good point there. Like, we often feel like pressure to like make choose a side, and it's like, it's just not. We're not an and or. The church is not an and or. It's a both and.
Yeah.
It's not either or. It's both and.
And it's important. Like, I mean, I don't judge people that that have those conversations, and those are good conversations. And,
Right.
you know, canon lawyers can have their time going crazy about these different topics, and, you know, like different priests and us ministry people and Catholics like weighing in on these conversations. I think over time though, I've just lost some of my interest in that. And not that it's bad or, you know, it's just for me. I'd rather spend my time doing other things. And, but I mean, like, I'm still kind of aware of it. I'm still kind of, you know,
I find myself getting too worked up when I start reading it.
Yeah, for sure.
On one side. So you know what? It's just more healthy for me to just separate myself from, I've been off of Twitter for a while, and sometimes I just go on to make a silly comment and then leave again. Like,
and again, like probably why we both love podcasting is I'd much rather have a 1 hour, very nuanced conversation about it and ask a lot of questions, you know, from my like amateur ignorant background, and just say, well, you know, explain this to me. I'm not understanding this. Like, let's clarify what you mean and this topic, and really explore it, as opposed to something really quick on social media. But you know, I've been there too. Like, there are some Facebook groups I was really active in that were really helpful to go really deep into these conversations. So there's a better way to do it, and there's a worse way to do that kind of stuff. But
yeah, you're right. Absolutely correct. But to go into like kind of stuff that you, another side topic here, I want to see, like, I know you're a designer. Are you a designer at heart, or is this something you just learned over time? You design your merch, you designed logos for almost everything you've done, and you have this certain theme that I think is very like, oh, when I see it, like, oh, I think of Edmund. Now there's a couple that I've seen other things that, you know, maybe slightly resemble it, and I'm like, oh wow, that makes me think of the show, or, you know, whatever. So
yeah, I mean, it's you know, for better or for worse, like, I've always been kind of, you know, on the more creative, artistic side, and I don't really, you know, it's weird. I don't necessarily consider myself. I consider myself much more of like a hacker, right? Like, in the sense that, like, jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. Like, just out of necessity. And when you have equal parts, like, practical application, exciting possibility, and then some like desire and natural attraction to a certain particular skill, I think over time it just, you know, you do that for 3 or 4 years, and pretty soon you look back and other people are like, hey, you're really good at that. And you're like, man, I'm just throwing this together. I don't know. I don't really consider myself a graphic designer per se, because I don't feel like I've dedicated enough time to it or know it well enough. But, you know, in this day and age, man, you can hack together and learn to teach yourself to do all sorts of stuff. So, you know, as a youth minister, it was like most youth ministers, I need to design a flyer, and, you know, I'm young and think most Catholic stuff really sucks. So I want to, you know, this is like in 2011 or 12, I'm like looking around at the church I'm working at and going, man, this is really awful. I want to design something better. And then how do I do that? And so just over time, you just learn things. It's like every month you learn a new keyboard shortcut, or you learn, you know, the difference between different color profiles in Photoshop. And pretty soon you look back and go, wow, okay. And then people start saying, hey, could I pay you to do something? You're like, wow, that's amazing. That's new. And then over time, it's like, at what point, everyone struggles with this, is at what point do you call yourself a particular thing, a particular field? So, so yeah, but I mean, it's always just been nice. I will say this, like, I don't know that I would, if I was my pastor and I walked by the first couple years of youth ministry and saw how many hours of graphic design work I was doing, like, it was not good. Like, I don't think it was good. So I think it wasn't necessarily a great way of going about it. And myself and my 2 other youth minister coworkers, we struggle with that as well. Like doing too many hours of graphic design, and then and then really, cause like, that's not ministry, right? Like, that's not ministry. So, so I think, you know, for better or for worse, it's just kind of been a habit. And Now I will say though, it's very, very helpful. Like it's extremely helpful to at least know some of the basics of design layout to be able to talk about things with designers, or just know enough to be dangerous so that if you do work with a graphic designer, if you do start something new, you're not kind of shooting in the dark. So that's been, and like I said, like client work, hobby work, and then my full-time work, they've all kind of bounced off of each other and helped each other in different ways. So, I think the biggest thing is just challenging yourself to put out stuff. Like, and if you focus more on volume, and less on quality, I think over time you get quality. You learn quality, as you're just putting out.
Totally. It's like one of those things you don't really, I feel like when you're thinking about a design, I mean, like you said, it's not necessarily ministry, but like a good design could attract someone who wouldn't be naturally looking at that stuff, right? And then maybe at first it's not the best, but as you kind of go on, you see, oh, what attracts people, and that makes design easier. I feel
for
like,
sure.
You know?
Oh yeah, like if I could go back and do it all over again, and this is what I do now with youth ministers that I hire, I just say, if you're gonna read one book, and it's the Non-Designer's Design Book by Robin Williams, not the comedian. But it's a girl, it's a woman.
Okay.
I would read that book and study it. And man, you could do it in an evening. I mean, just like 1 or 2 hours, you could go through it and learn the basic principles: alignment, contrast, proximity, and repetition. Right. And then learn the font principles, learn color principles, and then just get into Canva and just start studying some of the templates that you like, studying the things you like, or looking through Instagram, looking at things that you like, and try to replicate one aspect of it. So like if there's a cropped in image with a white background, just try to replicate that with your own next flyer or whatever. And that's it, man. Just over time. Don't worry about all the huge tools and courses and stuff. Just start doing that for a while, and you'll start getting an eye for it. Because really, like, getting an eye for design is something that I've realized, like, you can't really teach. You have to do it and do it and do it and study and study and study.
What I tell a lot of my friends who ask me, because I was doing graphic design in college before I went into youth theology at Ave, and one of the things that they asked me, like, because how do you come up with the ideas for your designs? It's like, well, I mean, honestly, a lot of designing is borrowing ideas, and making them your own. Yeah, like that's how I made my my logo for my old t-shirt company. That's how I made all these different things. You're not always going to make the most revolutionary, new, cool logo. You have to get creative ideas from others, and that's what the design community is all about.
100%. I think another thing that I wish I started doing sooner was collecting and curating your taste, and exposing yourself to a lot of really good design, and creating little mood boards or little collections. Like now what I do, my workflow is, if I find something I like, if I'm scrolling through Instagram and there's a design that really hits me as a new idea, or there's a part of it that I find really fascinating, I think it's really well done. Maybe they used abstract shapes as a background on top of something else. Right. I'll take screenshots. It's all about screenshots. And so screenshot on my phone, and I'll email it or text it to myself, or on my Mac. I'm always taking screenshots and just saving it to my desktop. And then once a week or once every couple weeks, I'll compile that all into a folder just called design. The same with websites, come across websites, all. And I think just that practice of taking that extra step of collecting really sharpens your design eye for things. And what's really helpful is later when you go to sit down to design, you can kind of re-jog your memory by going through your mood board, right? You can re-jog your memory and go, okay, that's right. I can use shapes this way, or I can use repeating patterns this way, or I could put grain on the back of something, was a new idea that I hadn't thought of adding an extra texture to the design. So those that is extremely helpful and really I think takes you further faster for sure.
That is really cool. Yeah, I mean, definitely, it's always that's awesome because you could even screenshot and put it right into an album, right? Like you can like you can just like have a whole album worth of that stuff. I feel like our phones have so much capabilities that we don't use.
Yeah.
To the best of our abilities, so that it can help us with stuff like this, or just in general. Like there's a lot of options that Apple has made for us, or Android has made for us, but we don't curate it to help us grow.
And like I think there's a book. Well, there's two books that I reference a lot. There's a book by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow. There's another book called The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt. And both of these are kind of books talking about trying to rethink from research in psychology or moral psychology, just researching how we think. Right. And the classical framework for thinking is the rider, the charioteer, and the horses, right? And the idea is that the horses are your passions, your emotions, and they're wild and crazy. And then the charioteer is your reason, your rational intellect, who's kind of in charge. And he can steer the emotions and pull them back when needed to be more rational, and then let them go when you're needing to be more indulgent, I guess. But it kind of has this idea that, I don't know, we kind of are influenced by, Aquinas and this classical understanding that there's the intellect and then the passions, and that the passions are good, but that they don't always have a constructive relationship with our reason. And then when we go to sit down and talk about art and talk about like being creative, I think sometimes we think too little about that relationship between both of them, right? And so for me, Jonathan Haidt has this. Well, Daniel Kahneman came up with this idea that a better analogy would be a rider on top of an elephant. And a rider on an elephant has way less control. Like your reason and your rational capacity, the rider, is on top of the elephant trying to nudge your emotions in a certain direction. And oftentimes intuition is our quick judgment, and then we'll come in with reason afterwards. So intuition is like the elephant. It's our emotional. This is what I think about this. And then we'll come back afterwards to rationalize it, to try to reason it out and think it through. Right. And so,
so cool.
Yeah, I like to think about our creative intuition, and we have good, like you're not designed. It's this whole, that famous quote by, oh man, I'm forgetting his name, but this famous podcaster who talks about creativity and that, you're like how you grow your good taste and how you grow your ability to execute on that over time. I'll have to find it. But there's this idea that, you have good taste, but you can't execute on it. Like, what looks good. Right. A lot of people know what looks good, but you have to refine not just your skill, but your intuition for solving the problem of the graphic design that you're working on. Right. And so this is just a long way of saying, I think it's really helpful to look at a lot of good work, good design, good graphic design, or good, whatever it is you're studying, and kind of prime your intuition before you sit down to design, or even while you're doing it. Right. You kind of just flood your eyes and your brain with the intuition, with the subconscious of where things go and look. And you won't be able to remember like which designer you got that from. But I found that in the moment, that mood board and looking through, and here's a bunch of good design, and then going and trying to sit down and trying to rationally, like, where am I going to put things? I found that balance works really, really well. And it's just a way of priming your brain. You can do the same thing with like a talk or with an interview, honestly. It's just prime your brain with a bunch of information, read through it all. And you're not trying to memorize it. You just want it in your brain. You just want it in that like subconscious, intuitive part of your brain.
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, like if you think about it, like music, right? Like you listen to music, like you might not always know like why it sounds bad or if something sounds good, but like you intuitively know like, oh, this doesn't sound right. It's like it sounds like it's in the wrong key. Most people, right? But not until you start refining it do you know like, oh, it's because it's supposed to be sung at a lower pitch or a higher pitch, like stuff like that.
Yep.
But we're able to do that with music and other things, and we are able to do it with creativity as well. We should be,
For sure. I think our like subconscious or our intuitive part of our of our creativity is really important. And it just goes to show how important it is to not be overly concerned about defending what not being overly scrupulous about what we take in, because I think if you're overly scrupulous about, well, I only take in stuff that's really, really holy and perfect, and I only take, then you're you've lost something there. But but to be, that stuff affects us. Those things affect us, and if just to be aware of that, to be aware that, like, what are you listening? What are you taking in? What are you seeing? And those things affect you. It really does. In the book Thinking Fast and Slow, they did a research study on the effect of reading certain words on that effect on these people's walking speed. So, and there's a few different studies. Like there was one study where they could measure in a particular city the walking speed of most pedestrians, and then within a pretty significant amount accurately guess the total population of that city.
Really?
So for some reason, the total population of the city and the speed, the rate at which most people walk was connected. The other study was they had people read a paragraph that had words like slow, old, dying, depressed. They had them read that paragraph out loud as part of the study. And then they pretended the study was over, but they measured the rate at which they walked from the science experiment room to the elevator. And then they had another group read words like fast, young, excited, those types of words. And they measured how long it took them to walk to the elevator, not thinking about the study anymore. And they found that those words impacted the rate at which people walked to the elevator.
Wow.
That those words had an impact, just subconsciously, it had an impact on them.
That's so cool.
So every morning I read words like attractive, smart, rich, hilarious, six pack.
Think it to existence. Come on, subconscious.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, it isn't like a direct correlation, right? Where if you read the word racist, you don't become a racist. But it's just this idea that how could we use that to our advantage? How could you prime intuition before you go into a creative work or into a meeting or into whatever,
Yeah, I mean, you kind of think about, like, I'm thinking about my friends who were athletes in college, and some of them would say that they would before a race, like, so country runners, like before a race they would watch these videos that like those YouTube videos of people like trying to motivate them. Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, I feel like it's something similar, right? Where you're like trying to hype yourself up to a point where like you like reach this new heightened state of like, oh, I can go further than I think I can now. Yeah. And like you're breaking those mental barriers, kind of manipulating yourself to kind of, already prep your mind so that you don't stop when you're feeling weak.
Oh, for sure.
I push through.
Yeah, I've heard that this is why story is so powerful for us. That they've done brain scans of people who are recounting a story of something that happened to them. They do a brain scan of where the brain is firing. And then they do a brain scan of someone who's listening to that story. And as they're listening to the story, the same parts of their brain, right? So if someone's telling the story, like, I smelled cookies, this person, the same parts of their brain that would be firing if they were remembering smelling cookies is being fired. And so later, if you ask them to kind of recount it, it impacts their brain in very much the same way as if they'd actually lived through it themselves. Wow. And I like that idea. I like that idea that that's why story is so powerful, is because in a way we get to live out we get to relive or live out something that otherwise we wouldn't have experienced.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. I love that a lot. Wow. And geez, this is a great tangent.
Yeah, right.
I was just thinking how we get here.
Yeah, I have no idea.
But it's true. I mean, creativity, basically. Like, so,
Yeah.
if you're trying to seek out to be creative, like, you know, my first and foremost thing is just to go and try it, and, you know, like, don't be afraid of it, because I feel like a lot of people are too worrisome about doing it wrong or putting something out there that's not actually good, or they feel like it's not good. And, you know, what I usually try to, you know, tell my friends and my teens who are trying to get into the graphic design, I was like, you know, just experiment, try it out. And those are some good tips that you were sharing earlier. Just kind of creating your board, your inspiration board, your mood board, to kind of like, hey, these are things that I find really cool. And, you know, just kind of creating that and messing around with that, because
for sure,
that's going to help you in the long run. Another thing you're really into is tech. So how, like, where did that start? Is that some just part of, you know, the podcasting world, a part of you, or is that just something?
Yeah. It's just kind of like, just from, well, I think every youth minister should know how to run a mixer and know the difference between XLR cables and 1/4 inch. So, I mean, it's some of that happened through that, right? Just trying to figure out, like, how do we use Pro Presenter to display graphics during a youth night, or, and then, I mean, it's a whole genre of YouTube. Basically, a lot of YouTube is just reviews of camera equipment and stuff like that. So you kind of you start geeking out about that. So that's always been, you know, kind of fascinating to me, getting into that. And also, you know, when you're kind of pushed to your limits as far as setting your own hours and trying to do so much, you have to learn how to be more efficient with your time. And so you have to develop kind of this, a lack of patience for things that are inefficient in your life. You just have to develop that sensibility that I could make this a little bit easier. I could save me 30 more minutes here or 20 minutes here. So then that kind of lends itself to getting more invested in having really good tech. I mean, man, this MacBook I've had since 2014 maybe. But gosh, I mean, it's like my right arm. I mean, I would not, if this thing fell on the ground and broke, I mean, I would be, because it's just so set up to try to help me get as much done as I can in as little amount of time as possible. Yeah, this is a MacBook Pro 2013 MacBook Pro, and it is just, I use the crap out of it.
That's awesome. I use I just bought a new 13-inch 2016 because my 2012 was like dinking out on me when I first got it. I had put in my backpack and I dropped my backpack a couple times, and the backpack didn't have that great of padding. So like already then I already started like mistreating it unintentionally. Yeah. And you know, I try to carry, remember one time I tried to carry too many things and my like MacBook got knocked out of my hand, and I softened the fall with my foot, but my foot was sore and the backpack still got hurt. Dang. Obviously. So like when you take care of your stuff and you really, you know, create it to a way that's going to help you be so efficient, you know, it's a beautiful thing. So now with this 13-inch, it's a lot faster, a lot more, you know, cooperative. And like my old MacBook is still here. I could still use it if I needed to, but the battery's shot, you know, there's a couple things like that it's a little far that it needs to be fixed until I can, you know, bring it back to life. But, you know, it's like, it was more financially efficient to just get a new one that is like, I got this used and for $600. Yeah. And when MacBooks are usually like $1,300, you know,
that's great
minimum. So
yeah, that's great.
But I'm a tech geek too, so I love geeking out. I love looking into stuff. I follow a bunch of like tech reviewers and unboxers, and it's just like, oh man, I get into this stuff. And the Rodecaster was something that I really wanted to get before I started podcasting. And then I found out you were using it, and I was like, oh shoot. Like
a lot of
this
people
thing
are.
is
I think
just-
Casey Neistat is now, and a bunch of people are
really?
using. It's just, and partially it's just because it's just so darn easy. It already has all the processing, the noise gate, all of the compression, all that stuff. So I don't even really edit audio anymore. I just take the audio straight out, and I know it's going to sound good, and I put it in Final Cut and do my stuff there. So yeah.
It's just it just like I feel like it would save so much time. And, it probably does all that stuff, like compression, noise gate, 10 times better than what GarageBand probably has to offer. But that's something that's not with that great quality. Probably it doesn't come with a cheap price either. So
yeah, it's costly for sure.
Yeah, but it's something an investment that if you really want to get serious, it's probably something you want to look into
for sure. 100%. Yeah.
I know one of your goals for your podcast was to get a studio, and you finally got it, and you're in it right now.
Yeah, it's wild.
How is that? How is it like having a place for creating?
Man, it's really weird. It's super weird. Like this was a dream that I thought would happen like maybe 20 years from now. Like it didn't seem like it would happen anytime soon. Right. So it's strange. I mean, it's really strange. And we're talking about a lot of this tech stuff and gear stuff. And I think you can fall into this trap of thinking like, okay, if I only got this really nice thing, then I would create so much. And you could fall into the same thing with a studio. If only I got this really nice studio, then wouldn't I create so much? And you have this, it's the same person, just with different gear in a different space. So that resistance, right? Like that book, The War of Art, right? There's always that resistance. And even though it might look like, well, wow, the space is way cooler, and aren't you just making stuff all the time? And there are some things we've set up to make things a lot easier. Like when I did this interview, I mean, I just walked in the door and came in the room and turned stuff on. So that's really helpful. Everything was in my dining room earlier. But yeah, it's definitely during this COVID time, it's like really wild because suddenly there's this big expense. And then, there's like Patreon support that's been huge. Like this wouldn't be possible without Patreon, without the Patreon supporters. But it's still scary. I mean, it doesn't cover all the costs, and at any point that could change. And so it's a little nerve wracking, but I think I'm slowly adapting to it. And it's just been really fun to collaborate with people in a space like this and not worry about waking up all of your kids and
What I like what you said was that, how we can put these goals, these having a studio or having this certain tech, like prevent ourselves from creating and stuff like that. And, that was something that before I started podcasting, I was like, oh man, I don't have the equipment. I don't have blah, blah, blah. But, same person. You can, if you really want to try to do it, just go and start, So with the only thing I bought for this podcast really is this microphone and arm that cost $30 altogether.
Yeah.
And I just started recording,
Yeah.
And I'm in the middle of my bedroom and like created this little space to be part of, what my studio per se, and I record. I don't do anything, and it's just like you said, you just set up. And I hate we talked about barriers earlier. I was like, the less barriers you put up for yourself and like excuses you put up for yourself, the more, I mean, if you're really called to like, put out content and you're actually going to be good about it, do it, just don't be afraid of experimenting and trying new things out. And if it doesn't work, I guess it doesn't work, then,
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. The book, The War of Art, I think it's Stephen Pressfield. Mm-hmm. It's a really good, short book. And it talks about the resistance that comes, and you'll find everything you can as an excuse to avoid putting in the hard work, which is making the thing or writing the thing. And and a lot of times quality is important, and we should always strive to increase the quality, but quality oftentimes can be a crutch when we don't have enough content. Like when there isn't substantial content. And so it's easier to just, work on getting new cameras, it's harder to work on presenting better on camera.
Right. Right.
So, I mean, like, come on, I'd listen to an interview between Mother Teresa and Fulton Sheen, even if it was on a crappy, like whatever, like one of the worst the first generation iPhones, right? If it was just set up to record both of them, I'd listen to it. So there's definitely that relationship between quality and content.
Yeah, definitely true. So yeah, that's a good point there. Do you have any more goals for the podcast from here on out?
I would love to, one is just staying consistent.
Right.
The other goals have been, we're building teams to help with these because, I don't have time to produce all of them myself. And I've actually found that it's really fun to work with teams. So getting more consistent teams in place would be really helpful. Yeah. Just so that also, because we also produce and help other people with their marketing and podcasts and video and stuff. Oh, really? So to kind of build that up would be really nice. And then honestly, and this sounds super dumb, but honestly, the best like next big goal that would be really awesome would be for like somehow either through Patreon or revenue or ads or whatever for the podcast or for whatever we're making in the studio to grow enough that I could semi pay some close friends to produce stuff here, like to come to pay Allie, Johnny, or Nick to be on a podcast, or to help them kind of go. I know Allie is trying to go full time in just her own creative work, so it'd be cool to offer this as another revenue stream or to produce her podcast or something like that. So that's kind of like a goal, but I think right now it's just trying to stay consistent, trying to keep making stuff. And, that's the big thing. Trying to stay alive, trying to stay, in the studio,
right.
And trying to keep it afloat.
That's awesome. So make sure you guys are going on to the show's Patreon and supporting them. And so we can help them reach that goal and create great content for you all,
Thank you.
What is your last thing here is like, what is your message to the people, to those who are listening, who maybe are, creators, youth ministers, designers, what is your message to them? What would you say, for anyone, I don't know, who might be,
I would just say
stuck in a rut.
I would just say, think long term, and, know that you're in it for the long term, whether it's graphic design or whether it's ministry or being a mom or whatever. Just like think long term. You're going to be alive for a long time. Yeah. And 4 years goes by fast. 8 years goes by fast. So, think long term and just be kind to yourself. Be patient with yourself. Just think long term and just know that a year goes by fast, 2 years goes by fast. And so think long term. Yeah.
Long term. Once you start something, don't plan just to end after, a certain amount of time. Like
exactly. Like if you put out a podcast and you think, oh man, that one wasn't that great and no one really listened to it. I mean, just think long term. After 3 years of doing it, no one's going to remember that.
Right.
Or the same with walking up to a girl and asking her out, or the same with, putting in an application for a job or interning for a year or doing whatever. Like just put it out and think long term, because 3 years from now, I mean, unless it's an amazing piece of work, 3 years from now, people, it's just in the grand scheme of things, how important is it really,
Yeah, right. That's so true. I forgot there's other one that I had thoughts like, what is one of your favorite episodes that you've done?
Oh man. The early ones with me, Johnny, Allie, and Nick were really special. And we've had a hard time more and more getting all four of us together, just with all the transition and everything. Yeah. Those ones are really special and fun. And then there's one with Eric Wilkes, Gabby Banzin, me, and I think Chris. That was an amazing one too. There were just some amazing moments. Like I don't know, my whole life I've kind of lived for that moment where you and a friend are laughing so hard that you're crying.
Yeah.
I've done that with my mom so much growing up. So much of my life was just trying to make my mom laugh.
Yeah.
And I have so many good memories of just us all laughing until we're crying. And so some of those episodes were really good. And then, the one that gets underappreciated that I wish more people listen to is the interview with Dr. Matthew Rossano on his book called Supernatural Selection: How Religion Evolved. And he's a Catholic, but he's also a psychology professor, evolutionary psychology professor.
Oh, really?
And the book is really fascinating about what are how could we trace some of the origins of religion and the practice of religion in the broad sense of the term, like just even the concept of something supernatural and all that. That was a really fascinating book and I thought a really good interview.
That's awesome. Yeah, definitely. I'll link those few episodes in the show notes. So if you want to go listen to them, you can go follow those. Go listen to them via the links there. And do you also release episodes that you recorded in the past and haven't finished producing, right? So most recent one was like from end of 2019.
It was from a lot. Yeah. It's part of the issue of like not having enough time to edit everything myself. And
sure.
I'm rethinking a lot. Cause like, man, we were going deep in the 3 cameras, audio. It was a lot to produce. And so it took a long time. And then, I've kind of, had transitions with different video editors and stuff like that. So yeah, man, sometimes those episodes get released a little later and then, it's kind of all over the place. So I want to get more consistent with that.
That's cool. But it's still good content. And like the one that you just did, is it Liv Harris that was just on?
Yeah.
That was really great. I was like cutting my hair at 1 a.m. and listening to it. Like,
that's great.
So, so make sure you go follow the show. They're available everywhere, right? Apple, Spotify, all that stuff.
Just search my name, Edmund Mitchell with a U.
Yep, it'll be in the everything will be linked in the bottom and all that stuff. And make sure you go listen to their stuff. Everything. If you're a youth minister, go listen to the Catholic Youth Ministry podcast. That's really awesome. And even if you're not, maybe you're in ministry and want to get some good ideas. I'm sure. Like a lot of the stuff there is created for just people in ministry in general.
Definitely.
And what is it? What was I gonna say? What are your few shout out a few of your favorite podcasts out there that you want people to listen to as well?
Whoops, say that again.
Shout out a few of other podcasts that you want people to listen to as well.
Oh, let's see. Oh, let me just pull up definitely Joe Rogan. I listen to much Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
What else do I listen to? I listen to other ones that are probably not super appropriate. So, but the Fizzle Show is great. I think right now they had a good conversation. Oh, The Future with Chris Doe. I think that one's pretty good too. The Gary V audio experience is always great. Yeah, the Ground Up Show with Matt Diavella. Mm-hmm. Those are some pretty good ones. If you want to get really into business and get really fired up about just like business in general, anything by Shawn Wes.
Shawn Wes.
SEANWES. In particular, there's the Shawn Wes show, I guess, and then there's also Lambo Goal, which Lambo Goal isn't an active podcast anymore. But man, I've re-listened to all those episodes over and over and over again.
Well, awesome.
And one last one I have to mention is The Portal with Eric Weinstein. Is also really wild. So those are pretty good ones.
Those are great.
I gave you like 100.
That's awesome. No, go listen to these things because I love, podcasts. It's not often that podcasters actually listen to podcasts, which is what I'm starting to find out. But like, I'm one of those that love listening to others. And, for me, it's just like a great way to find other topics to talk about or, to, people to maybe interview and stuff like that. It's just really cool,
Oh yeah, for sure.
Especially for myself, I love listening to Catholic podcasts, but I definitely listen to my guilty pleasures that will leave be unnamed because those are definitely not something I would promote for others to listen to. Yeah. So thanks for coming on, Edmund. It was really awesome.
Hey, yeah, I was really honored that you asked me on. This was very fun.
Yeah, it was great. So if they want to follow you, it's on Edmund Mitchell on Instagram.
Yeah.
On every other social, right? YouTube and.
Yep. And I have a website, edmundmitchell.com, but I'm super active on Instagram. And then if you search my name in podcast or Instagram or YouTube, you'll find my stuff. All of my podcasts have video component too. So they're on YouTube and Facebook as well.
Awesome. So make sure you go subscribe, listen, and all that stuff for great content always. If you want to follow Living Ardently, you can follow us at Living Ardently on Instagram. You can follow my personal account at It's Only Adrian. And make sure you go on Apple, if you're listening on Apple, to go and subscribe subscribe, like, and review. Those really help the podcast and get out to more people. And if you're not, just make sure you're following or subscribe so you get notifications as to when we're posting. During the month of May, we're doing a lot of collabs, and we're trying to record as much as we can. So there might be 3 episodes a week. There might be 2 episodes per week now. But we're definitely doing the 5-minute Fridays at least. So tune in for those. We're going to hang out, have some fun with our guests that are coming on during the week and play a couple of games and stuff like that. So come on, check it out. And yeah, I guess that's all I got. Thanks again, Edmund. Any last words?
Of course. Just long term. Think long term.
Always long term. God bless you all. Thanks for listening. Hope this helped you enjoy your quarantine or your day a little bit. God bless you all. And until next week, keep living ardently. Peace.